Yeah, this is way back when we talked about like what is truth. Remember that?
Oh yeah, and you said, what did you say? You said something that really pissed me off, and then I yelled at you to get in the Discord. I don't remember now what it was.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so you were describing, I think it was like a conspiracy about like, the government, if they have like this shadowy cabal that's moving things from the shadows, and it turns out to be true, and then you said that evidence is what makes things true, not things being true. And I said that things are true no matter what.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and then
I
I
said
think
that
that
just because something is true, makes it true, not like, it's and that even if there's not evidence for things that we can find, things can still be true even if we don't like see them ourselves.
okay, yeah, 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 and then I
I'm
think
pretty
that
sure that's what it was.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think when we were talking, we were getting somewhere that the evidence is not what makes something true necessarily, but it is what gives you the validity in claiming that it is true, essentially.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was and I agreed with what do you call with that statement. I just said that in making in something being true, just like in like conceptually as we see it. What do you call? I'm saying that things are true whether or not we see the evidence to see them. But I definitely agree 100% with your justification for things being true. Like or like at least quoting the evidence is a good means of how do you say
Arriving at truth
you know
or being able
yeah,
to
yeah, proving to other people that said concept is true.
right, and I think that that's where we got into the debate initially too, because I was saying that conspiracy theorists who basically throw a bunch of shit at the wall don't get to
Yeah,
go and claim, oh, look it, I was right, just because they happen to guess one thing correctly out of all the other bullshit.
yeah.
And then I think that you said something like, yeah, but it doesn't change the fact that what they said was true. But I mean, in that
Yeah,
case,
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, so yeah,
well, hold on, wait,
what
can
I
I
was
just
getting with
further
that.
finish really quickly? Because it's just
Oh,
in
sure thing, sure thing, sure thing. Yeah,
I agree that evidence does not necessarily make something true. However, in a case like COVID conspiracies, if you're going to say something like this was in a lab from China, um, it is incorrect. You are wrong when you say that until there is evidence to demonstrate that it was in fact made in a lab in China, because you otherwise have no way of knowing, right?
that's true. You may have not no way of knowing, but whether or not I still stand by my point that the what is it? We don't know if it's true or not. Like at the end of the day, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But whether it's true or not is completely irrelevant to to the actual fact that it may be true or it may not be true. It's possible that that's
Well, yeah, but
you
the
know
thing is that it could be true at
yes.
a later point, but it's conspiracy until it's demonstrated to be true.
It's still yeah, yeah, but I mean that still doesn't mean that the thing could not be true, even if it is a conspiracy.
Yeah, but I know,
I
and I'm
don't have
not
a
even disagreeing with this necessarily. What I'm saying though is that, in regards specifically to conspiracy theorists, if they were
okay.
to say something like this came from a lab in China, because a lot of the times what happens is they'll say a ton of dumb shit, and then
Yeah.
something later comes out that more or less is comparable to one of the dumb fuck things they said a year ago, and then they take that thing that came out, like that piece of evidence, and say, look, I was right all along. Like,
Hmm.
no, before that evidence existed, you were a conspiracy theorist because you had no way of demonstrating what you were saying is true.
I don't think that what do you call uh whether or not they're a conspiracy theorist and hinges on the fact that they said something true, because I think they would still technically be a conspiracy theorist. I mean, you take someone like Alex Jones who says like like forward in the water or something like that, and everyone kind of knows him as like a general conspiracy theorist, but then one of his quote unquote like conspiracies ends up becoming, I guess, like what we colloquially would I guess consider true, like say like one thing, whatever what that one thing is,
Mm-hmm.
people would still consider him a conspiracy theorist, even if whatever that one thing was that he said
Well, that's because generally
it was true.
I'm not saying conspiracy theorist as the person. I'm saying what they were saying was literally a conspiracy until it is proven correct. And that's what they don't understand. They'll say, why was I banned for misinformation? But now there's evidence coming out that shows I was right. It's because at the time you were spreading misinformation because that evidence didn't exist.
So you were spreading information because no one could prove it. That sounds like a kind of a the very
No,
easy
it's
way to slippery slope.
misinformation. It's misinformation. If I come out and just say things and then I happen to be right later on, sure, I was right if I happen to guess something correctly, but until there is actually evidence, you are doing nothing but alleging conspiracy.
Well, wait, but well, what's the definition of misinformation? I thought it had to be the intention of misleading people.
Yeah, I think that misinformation is probably not the right word. I shouldn't have said misinformation, but I think that I need to keep saying just what I've been saying. It's conspiracy.
I mean, yeah, I mean, a conspiracy theory is a conspiracy theory, but I still hold like at the end of the day, if someone says something that's true, and I'm not saying that this is like a good or bad thing, you know, like I want to clarify that if someone just says something and it just so happens to be true, I'm not trying to denote how do you say that that it's a good thing that people are following this person because in a conspiracy, you know, say they spouted a conspiracy and the conspiracy just so happened to be true, that they gain a larger following. I'm not saying that that's a good thing or you know or like a bad thing. You know, the fact that a person that didn't how do you say like prove their work, you know, show their
Mm-hmm.
work in what it is that they claimed. I'm not saying that that's a good thing. I'm just saying that you know that stuff just happens, and
And yeah, they
I'm
could
just
be
saying that.
right, sure, but again, I think we already talked about this last time too. Is the way they arrive to a correct claim is complete bullshit. Like I said, if I roll a
Yeah, yeah, it's
dice and say if I get number five, then the world is round, and then I get number five, and I say, look, that means the world is round. I'm right, the world is round, but the way by which I arrived at that conclusion is ludicrous.
yeah, yeah, and that was the one where you said it was a blind person, but he couldn't see he couldn't see the dice to know that he rolled a five. That I remember I said that was funny.
Okay.
Um, no, no, yeah, yeah, but no, yeah, I completely understand your point, but I mean, what do you call the? I guess we don't really disagree on that aspect. The main reason, what is it that I got called in here though, is I think one of your mods said that I was like defending Andrew Tate. I don't really know if I was defending him per se, but I did say that it was a shame that he got banned. And the main and the and I guess suppose you could call me something of like close to a free speech absolutist. Like I'm very like very pro free speech,
Mm-hmm.
and I think and I thought a lot of the you know the stuff that he says, it's almost like he embodies a caricature similar to like Brucey from GTA 4. You know, he's a very kind of like wacky out there guy. I wouldn't be surprised if he does like a shit ton of testosterone. Like he just embodies a character from like a kind of a bygone age, you know, that sort of like really, I guess you could say, quote unquote, toxic masculine individual, you know, who's like, oh yeah, get the bitches, what do you call it? Drive the nice cars, you know, he kind of embodies that persona, and I think it's pretty cringe. Not gonna lie, I think it's really cringe, but I mean, he's kind of amusing in its own way. You know, you kind of see those kind of caricatures in different kinds of media, and I think it's kind of funny in that regard. So, I mean,
I
that
mean,
was my that was my justification for it. You know, that was I guess that's my kind of form of defending. You know, oh, that's why he should be on the platform. I kind of just want him on the platform so I could laugh at him. Same reason for like a bunch of people on
but do
YouTube
you
that
think
got.
that's a problem? That, like, see, for you, it sounds like you're reasonable enough to watch Andrew Tate and see him for what he is. Like, you think he's kind
Yeah,
of a dumb character, kind of playing up that manly man sort of shit. Um,
yeah. The
but
caricature. Yeah, he's a caricature.
but there are millions of young boys who watch this guy and take what he says as truth.
I don't know. You know what? I would have to look into what it is, or at least his the amount of people that he has following. Because honestly, ever since you started covering him, this is the first time I saw Andrew Tate with that really cringy meat cannon video. Oh God,
That
that
was
was
weird.
not real. That was
But do
that
you
was
see that
not
there's a
real.
problem with potentially keeping somebody like that on these platforms? I mean, of course, you know, we always talk whenever free speech gets brought up, we always have the first conversation about free speech really just means you don't have your speech impeded by the government. Doesn't mean that private platforms can't ban you. But I mean, even if we were to ignore that, then don't you see there being serious potential harm from allowing a person like that to spread and to reach as many people as possible with these, quite frankly, he spreads misinformation. Okay, saying that depression is something you can just overcome like that is misinformation. So I feel like stuff like that Don't you think that that could result in a pretty negative outcome?
I think it could have resulted in a negative outcome, but I also think that what do you call freedom is worth sort of like that negative blowback, because I think his ideas are easily counterable by logical reasoning, and so
Yeah,
for
but
that
people
reason,
aren't logical. I
well,
agree with that, but
I,
if he's
I know that.
appealing to 11 to 15-year-old boys, they're some of the dumbest people around right now because
Uh,
they haven't figured shit out. Yeah, they're
you
not going
know
to approach this with logic.
you know you're 100% right, but that's why people like us exist, Hunter. You know that we're here to shine the light and put logic in people's minds, you know, to tell them, hey, there's another way. You know, you don't got to treat women like garbage. You don't gotta do these things, you know. And I've always been like, I guess you could say, like sort of a like a how do you say, like a yeah, not your stereotypical super testosterone man. You know, I've always been kind of like a feminine, meek kind of individual who is, you know, who always wanted, to respect women. You know, like a feminist in my own way. You know,
Hmm.
but what do you call But yeah, I mean, we've seen these caricatures before. You know, you saw them on in high school. You see them, especially in middle school. You know, you see these individuals all the time, and I suppose you could have Andrew Tate kind of just be that embodiment of like
Yeah, but we
the.
already have seen, the problem is we've seen a lot of negative outcomes from the type of worldview that you seem to be advocating for. I mean, take Alex Jones, for example, right? You say you're
Oh,
a free speech absolutist. That would
yeah,
probably entail not banning Alex Jones. But
yeah.
I
we
couldn't even
know that
dream of being a
Alex
man half
Jones,
as good as
I
you,
mean, he just got
Hunter.
sued for defamation, and he was now, I guess, found guilty of defamation for spreading misinformation and slandering parents and dead children. Like,
I
that's
yeah, I
and it's
think he would.
resulting in a real harm, right?
No, I think what it was is that he would send reporters over to the houses of the parents that lost their kids, and he was essentially questioning them on like if they actually lost their kids, because I know that a lot of people throw around the idea that what do you call that Sandy Hook
Crisis
occurred.
actors.
Yeah. What is it? Or they well, some people think that he said that Sandy Hook didn't happen, but what he actually said was like it was a government op that caused for like that stuff to happen, and so he had a lot of quote unquote questions surrounding that, and I know that you know you got a character like Alex Jones out there who you know just does like
But
spat a lot of
but
shit.
wait, that's the problem. Is that you have people like Alex Jones who have oops. Hold on. I just accidentally unplugged my thing. I can't hear anything.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. That's the
Yeah, no
problem though, is you have people like Alex Jones, right? I mean, remember Pizzagate? What happened? Somebody
yeah, with
showed up at that pizza restaurant with a fucking gun. What happened with
yeah,
Trump? He said the election was stolen. He spread nonstop misinformation. We had January 6th. And all of these instances of rioting against Congress or breaking into breaking into government buildings, right? Threatening to kill people, that's infringing on their freedoms. That's infringing on their rights. That's why we fall back to the tolerance paradox is if you allow for absolute free speech, then what's going to happen is somebody like Andrew Tate
I couldn't
is
even
going to
dream
be
of
able to
being a
spread
man
their
half
message
as good
far
as you,
enough
Hunter.
until you have a large enough group of people that think women are inferior to men, they should shut the fuck up and let men handle the problem. And now, because you have allowed total free speech, you are now seeing less free speech because women are not able to express themselves the same.
I think it's all about balance, though. I mean, you sure you know. I know you put a bunch of emphasis on these people who have large. I guess, as you can say, I guess I suppose Andrew Tate has a large platform, but even if that's the case, I mean, you can't deny that our side, you know, the people on the more left leaning side, have just as much, if not more, of a megaphone to speak our message against, you know, like any kind of misinformation, as you say, excuse me, or any other how do you say, you know, any other kind of nonsense that gets put out into the ether. So because of that
I couldn't
situation, I
dream of
think
being a
it's all
man
about
half as good
balance,
as
and
you,
I think
Hunter.
that the left has at least enough control over the institutions as it is to to counter, far radical conspiracy theories.
They
You know,
don't, though. And also, even if they did, I don't know why this is relevant.
I think it is because I think I like a country where all our voices get to be said. I may dislike some of the content some people say, but I think there's a very valuable thing in having balance between opposing sides, so that way people don't feel like they're quelled, by like a dictatorship.
Yeah, but I think that the problem here is that you again are assuming that this is like the marketplace of ideas meme, that like, oh, enough people will argue the bad ideas, so the bad ideas will lose. But like, we tried
Mhm.
that and it didn't work.
How did it
People are
work?
asking in chat, would you have banned Adolf Hitler from Twitter?
Probably not. Just because I mean, one, most people couldn't really understand what he's saying because it would be in German, but
Uh-huh.
and that's okay. But another thing is that it's just like, I mean, because Adolf Hitler at that time, if he had like Twitter, he wouldn't have what do you call
Uh-huh.
how do you say well, him having a social media, that's just kind of odd to try to take someone from the past and you know what do you call try to put him in modern day. I feel like you'd have to ask a lot of questions kind of around like what was there TOS at that time, or like I guess we're undergoing my situation of TOS, but
Right.
I'm sure a lot of people would have been sharing a bunch of his how do you say his radical content all across the internet, especially if like I guess this would be very similar to kind of how Putin is doing his whole thing with the
Yeah, but
war.
there's two problems with this. Is that one, from a moral standpoint, if you want to reduce harm and you hypothetically are to have somebody like Adolf Hitler, who's to say that him having the ability to spread his message even further wouldn't result in more harm against Jews? I mean, look what even happened with COVID stuff, right? The Chinese virus was followed by an uptick in violence against Asian Americans. Like, that's fucked up. Free speech has consequences. Free speech results in other people taking actions that hinder other people's freedoms. And that's why I think that there needs to be a balance, a limit there. And then second of all, I don't know if we want to get into like the private business thing, but I mean, you just can't expect private businesses like Twitter, Facebook, or whatever to platform people that are causing significant harm or danger or a threat to their business, just like you wouldn't, under a free speech absolutist worldview, force the car dealership to allow the guy who's just standing there screaming the N-word to stay in the store.
I think there's a difference between the what do you call not the yeah, I guess you could say the marketplace of ideals, or no, yeah, let me see, the public square, I guess you could say. I think there's a difference between the public square and individual businesses, and I would be willing to make a caveat for that. Anything that has to do with like like say 4chan, Twitter, Facebook, anything that has to do with a public square where
But
ideas
that's not.
are put back and forth towards one another, I would be willing to say that there should be an exception for that.
No, because you're wrong. You're wrong to assume that these are public squares. They're literally by definition not public squares.
How are they not public squares?
They're private entities.
And how are they still not public squares? Isn't social media? I mean, isn't it literally called social media, where we socialize with one another? I'm a little confused by
Wait,
your.
yeah, of course, but again, they're private at the end of the day. You can't treat them like you would the public square. That doesn't make any sense. They're
If we
private
put if we,
businesses, and you realize that because they're private businesses, they have an incentive to make money and appeal to advertisers. And if they are forced to platform people who are damaging their business, that is going to result in, again, the collapse of these platforms. And by your logic, if you're going to consider social media stuff free speech, again, resulting in a reduction of free speech.
Actually, I disagree, because if you force them all to allow everyone to go on, then the advertisers would have no choice but to advertise on their platform. So I completely disagree with you there.
That's not even necessarily true. They might just go somewhere else.
Like where?
Like advertise on football games, on TVs, on other websites. This is the problem is a lot of the times you guys say, "Oh, well Twitter's like the public square."
Other than
There's a difference between getting banned from Twitter and being banned from the internet. You can make your own website, you can post your own blogs. I mean, Trump did his little thing with Truth Social and whatever. Like
yeah.
you're not banned from the internet, which maybe by then you would have an argument that that's kind of like a public square.
I mean, I know I don't deny that the internet's a public square, but I don't, I just I can't see how you don't see social media platforms as a public square. I
Because
mean,
by
I just
definition they're not, and even if I was going to say whatever colloquially you can call them a public square, even in actual public squares we still reduce free speech at times. You do not have the freedom of speech to walk into a public square and start screaming the n-word over and over again. You just don't. You will get arrested for disturbing the peace.
I suppose yeah, I suppose that's true that you that or someone would like assault you, but you know
Well, that
that's
would be not freedom of speech at that point, but yeah.
no, no yeah, but what do you call I think the fact that it's the internet though that's completely different. The fact that you can just block or you know what do you call easily get away from the people that quote unquote like I guess you're shouting the n-word. I think that makes things a lot more different than someone that you're like forced to listen to. Because on the internet, you're not forced to listen to anyone. You can just put on a block button. You can just ignore their posts. It's quite
Yeah, it's a
I
lot easier said than done. And again, you're forgetting that if somebody's getting on to a social media platform and they have to be hitting the block button 60 times every time they go on to block out all the people calling them the N-word, then they're most likely going to leave. You've now hindered someone else's quote unquote free speech, at least based on your definition, and you're harming the business because that business wants as many people as possible to be on the platform and to see the ads. And if black people are leaving because they're getting spewed with racial hate all the time, or if trans people aren't joining because they're being attacked with a bunch of transphobia, that's going to hurt the business at the end of the day.
I think that again, this goes back to my point about business or not business, balance is that you have just as many what do you call I guess like pro black not pro black but like people that are okay with black people well in fact I would argue significantly more people that are okay with black people than there are with what do you call
Wait, but we're
with
not
race.
talking about like an actual company here.
Yeah, but I'm
We're
just
talking
using
about social media platforms.
yeah I know yeah I know and so for that reason I don't think there are that as many how do you say uh racists attacking like black people on social media like just
Yeah, because
bombarding them unless you
you
get
know
tired
you're
wait
stop,
for
dude. There because there's currently a TOS. Yeah, I know. But this is the problem is if you're going to say that we should force social media companies to allow virtually any form of speech, then
yeah
where are you going to draw the line? Does this apply now to all private businesses? Would you force the car dealership to keep the guy who's screaming the N-word in his store?
it would only apply to social media platforms.
So
There you go.
why?
That's where I'm drawing the line. Oh, because I believe, and I'm pretty sure most people believe, that it's the what do you call them? It's the public square. That it's a place where people can just divulge their ideas. And I think that's a very good stop. In fact, I would like codify that into law. Nothing else that what do you call public squares are considered free speech havens. I don't
So are
think
you
there's
able
a
to ever get banned from a public square for
um
speech related things? Like the example I gave you earlier, like if you were actually in a physical public square screaming the N-word, the Supreme Court has already ruled repeatedly that hate speech is covered under free speech. So you do have a constitutional right to spew racial hate, but at the end of the day, who's going to want to go to the public square if there's a dude there screaming the N-word?
I think everyone, if they're all trying to interact with one another, I think the crowd chatter of a bunch of other people talking about different things, cooking, gaming, TV shows, will overshadow the one dude, spewing the N word. I think
I'm asking you though in like real life.
Yeah, in real life. I mean, if you think about how crowded a public square is, and if we're taking the crowd of the internet, we have a lot of people, like literally everyone. No one's going to hear the one guy saying the N word
So
because
do you think
everyone's
we
going
should get
to.
rid of like disturbing the peace laws?
It depends on what they mean by disturbing the peace. Are we talking about specifically just voicing one's concern, or are we talking about like a person walking around naked? Like
Well, if you're walking around screaming the N word, that would
uh,
be disturbing the peace. So you would get arrested for that, or at least the police would show up. Isn't that an infringement on freedom of speech, according to you?
Um, let me see. A person running around showing. I think the fact is that in that the public square setting that we're talking about, the peace wouldn't be disturbed because no one would hear the guy because we're all talking about our own thing. We're talking about literally the entirety of the internet, all talking about our own thing. So for that reason, that person wouldn't be recognized.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think that you're being realistic about this at all, but
What do you mean? I'm taking this in complete good faith, Hunter. I'm not like trying to, be weaselly about it. But I think I just, personally, I think it's true that what do you call that the amount of our voices that are always speaking about different things, we're not all listening to like that one racist that's in the corner saying his own thing. I just think that the world is just way too big, and trying to quell freedom of speech in a public
so
square
the
setting.
truth is that you can get arrested in a situation where you yell at somebody else in public. The police can claim you were disturbing the peace. It
Wait,
was
wait,
a
wait.
noise violation.
So that was directed at a particular individual.
Right, so should
That
somebody get banned from a social media platform if they're directing shit at a specific individual?
it depends on the individual and what the individual did, and
Yeah,
what do
no
you?
shit, man. Come on.
No,
Generally
no, 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 no.
speaking.
I'm not trying to, like I'm just trying to clarify, like the situation here. Um, so what do you call? I mean, even then, I feel like the person can just block the individual. I mean, I just don't see the
So why couldn't the person getting shouted out just like walk away?
the person probably wouldn't. Well, he could, but what do you call? But chances are he wouldn't hear the person. And again, in our real life scenario, because there are just way too many people talking in
I
the
do
what do
not
you?
think you understand what I mean when I say a public square. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like a
We're
busy hustling and bustling, um, like, I don't
yeah,
even know.
that's not a public square. Like we're talking
No,
about
that's
like
not true. Like, I don't know. It's
what do you mean? What do you mean? Then if I'm misunderstanding, please explain because I'm that's what I'm thinking of. It's like suddenly we're back in medieval times and everyone's in the public square.
I'm not talking. Yeah, someone said in chat, we're not talking about like Times Square. We're talking about like a town square where there's like the middle fountain area. There's a
Yeah,
couple
yeah, that's what,
people. If somebody is running around yelling at me, then no, I will probably hear them yelling at me. Yeah. And so, I mean, you then get into the territory of, well, is this getting into harassment? Should somebody be banned on social media for harassment? If you're not going to ban somebody for harassment, or let's give it a more practical example. If every time I went down to the local town square and there was somebody there screaming at me, eventually, if there was nothing that was going to be done about it, I would just stop going. And now my
so
ability to navigate this public square, as you put it, has been restricted.
I think what is it? You still have the option to go. I mean, there's a chance you could probably confront the individual that's doing this in this, this quote unquote this public square, like we said, like we explained, like where we put down the groundwork for like a medieval kingdom. But of course, it's just like I'm also gonna add in the caveat that, of course, in a monarchy, that's not exactly a democracy, and of course, someone that's disturbing the peace
Okay, we're
can be.
not talking about monarchy here. We're just talking about how we would
No, no,
have
no.
to.
Yeah, yeah.
We're
I
talking
know,
about
but
where certain restrictions need to be placed on certain speech issues in order to protect the overall speech and freedom of others.
I think people's. I mean, I honestly, I think that the internet is the best place to protect it because if you're not, what do you call I mean, if a person harasses you on the internet, you can just block them. I think that's
That's so
I
much
mean,
easier said than done. This is like saying,
well, why
oh, if there's a guy who's shouting at you
why
in the public square, just plug your ears. LOL.
plug your ears? Well, it's weird because you're shifting, you're completely shifting the situation from like real life to what do you call to the internet. And I think the you can't deny that the advancement of technology has an effect here.
It has an effect, yes, but I'm just trying to demonstrate how even in our day-to-day lives, we have restrictions on freedom of speech. Expecting there to be complete and total freedom of speech on these social media platforms would be a disaster. Have you ever heard of 4chan? Look what happened over there.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
too also have a TOS.
Um, well, what's the problem with like 4chan?
It's been
I mean, I've heard of the
overrun
site.
by Nazis and other degenerate fuckwits because there was not a actually properly enforced TOS. And now nobody uses that site except for Nazis.
And the degenerates, as you say.
Yeah, and the degenerates, of course.
And the degenerates. Okay.
All
Well,
right,
what?
well, I got to split, but I appreciate the talk.
No, no, I appreciate the talk. It's good talking to you, Hunter.
All right, see ya.